Across the Fence, sheep shearing is one of the sure signs of spring in Vermont. We'll learn all about the patience and skills of professional shearers and highlight upcoming workshops for beginners and intermediates. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. It can be difficult to find a professional sheep shearer in the Northeast. As small flock owners know all too well, there are only a few professional shearers in our region. That's one reason why the University of Vermont Extension and its partners offer hands-on sheep shearing schools. To find out more about shearing and Vermont's sheep industry, I'm joined by UVM Extension livestock specialist Joe Emenheiser. Welcome. Thanks so much for being with us. Can you give us a little history of Vermont's relationship with sheep?
It's pretty humbling to find out just how many sheep were here at one time. In the early 1800s, the wool industry was huge, and about 80% of the land in Vermont was clear, and there were 1.5 million sheep in the state.
That's almost hard to believe.
It's pretty astounding.
And so what about the sheep industry in Vermont today? Can you give us sort of a snapshot of what that's about?
Well, it's much smaller scale. The numbers are now about 15,000. Based on the last census. The flocks are a lot smaller, and there's been a shift from industrial wool production to small hand spinner flocks or meat production.
Mm-hmm. And so all these sheep do need to be sheared. How often?
Usually about once a year in the spring is pretty standard. Depends a little bit on the breed, but usually in the spring before they lamb and before the weather gets warm.
Mm-hmm. And so by the end of the wintertime, they must have pretty full head of hair.
Right, which they need to keep warm, and then, you know, as the weather warms up, it's time to change clothes.
Now, when you watch a professional sheep shearer, it really kind of looks easy. It looks like the sheep are totally cooperating, and they can do the job in no time at all, but it's not that easy.
No, it looks a lot easier than it is. It's really a difficult skill to acquire because there's so many things that need to be done at one time. I mean, for one, it's intensely physical work, and a shearer will, you know, often shear 100 or more sheep in a day, and they're bent over for most of the time. The technique is designed to control the sheep, so to minimize stress on the animal and on the shearer, and it's all about harvesting a quality product. So the goal is to get the fleece off in one piece with as few second cuts that leave little short fibers that would weaken a yarn.
And so do you shear?
I do. I put myself through school shearing sheep. I started probably 20 years ago and have probably averaged 1,000 sheep a year. And it's been a pretty neat experience that, you know, gave me some pocket change and got me all over the country, and met a lot of interesting people.
And if someone wants to learn to shear sheep, you're offering a workshop.
Yep. One of our main goals is to make sure that this skill isn't lost. It's something that's really important, and it's a trade that you know, takes a lot of experience to learn. But if we can keep that alive and make sure that we're producing a quality wool product in the state, that's our main goal.
And what are some of the things people should think about if they're thinking about learning how to shear sheep?
Well, I mean, again, I think it starts with product, and if you enter into that mindset that, you know, the goal is to make sure that you're harvesting a quality wool product, that's goal number one. But then just bear in mind that it takes a long time to learn this, you know, maybe 10,000 hours to master a skill, and so you're not going to leave a school knowing how to shear 100 sheep. But little steps at a time.
But it might get you through your flock.
Right, absolutely.
So when and where are the workshops, and how can someone get information or sign up?
We're holding 2 this year. We'll try to do it, or continue to do it every year, but this year the first is on Saturday, April 26th at Shelburne Farms. The second is on Sunday, the 27th at the Mccray Center.
Mm-hmm. And so if someone's thinking of attending one of these workshops, what should they be prepared for?
Just be prepared for a day of work, be prepared to learn and be open-minded, and be excited about the sheep industry in Vermont.
Is it frustrating?
It can be, for sure. Yep.
So be patient.
Yep.
Well, one of the leading professional shearers in Vermont will be teaching at the workshops is Jim Mccray of the Green Acres Farm in Pittsford, and Across the Fence visited with Jim as he got down to work.
You really need to like to do this if you really want to do it.
According to the United States Department of Agriculture, there are 10,000 sheep in Vermont. but only 10 professional shearers.
Every year, sheep need to be sheared. It's unhealthy for them not to be. And so there is a tremendous need for shearers. There's obviously less sheep in Vermont than there was, 140 years ago. But there are a lot of hobby flocks and a lot of opportunities for people to raise sheep in Vermont. A lot of open land that needs to be kept open. And so there is a need.
The saying, necessity is the mother of invention, obviously didn't come from someone trying to shear sheep.
Oh my, yeah, I had plenty of problems. I vividly remember shearing, I think my first sheep, it took me about 40 minutes to shear. And she came out in one piece, and I was pleased, but I said there's got to be a better way than this.
Mccray's search for a better way brought him to the University of Vermont Extension's sheep shearing school, held annually by Extension livestock specialist Chet Parsons.
Chet's done an excellent job through the years of getting local shearers to come and to help. And it's a sort of a low-key, fun approach to things, and I think that really helps. You could have a commercial operation, I suppose, but really, Extension, this is part of Extension's, I believe, it's part of Extension's focus and part of their job, and I think this is like one of the, I think, really best things that Extension does, UVM Extension does for the sheep industry.
Despite the efforts of those involved in the shearing school, the lack of trained shearers is not unique to Vermont. Worldwide, the sheep industry is experiencing a shortage of professional shearers as well. Like many professions that were tied to agriculture and thrived a century ago, sheep shearing is becoming a lost art.
It's one thing to learn the pattern and to learn how to hold a sheep with your body and the right pressure points, using your feet and whatnot. But then to make it almost a beautiful thing, to be constantly moving. One thing you learn about sheep shearing is if you're fighting the sheep, you're going to lose the battle. So you have to hold the sheep and be able to move her along and shear without stressing her too much and without having too much of a battle. I can sit a ewe down and start to shear, and I concentrate on making each stroke maybe a little bit better or doing something a little bit different, and I think it's really rewarding to me. Now I'd be a liar if I said it's always that way, but that's what I shoot for, and that's really why I enjoy it. The kind of shearing we do is not where we shear, thousands of sheep over a week. We go from place to place, and most flocks in Vermont, I would say they probably average less than 20. And most of our flocks, I would say, are in the 4 or 5. Occasionally we'll stop for one pet ram, but somebody's got to do it. And if not, you're actually discouraging these people from having animals if you don't have shearers. So there is a real need, and it's I encourage people who are interested in it to try it.
It's a little sticky.
As we mentioned earlier, there are 2 sheep shearing workshops on the horizon. On Saturday, April 26th, the workshop is at Shelburne Farms. And on Sunday, April 27th, the workshop is at the Merck Forest and Farmland Center in Rupert. For more information on sheep shearing schools, call 802-483-2463. Well, joining me now are representatives from Shelburne Farms and the Merck Center. Rachel Cadwalder-Staub is an educator at Shelburne Farms, and Tom Ward is the executive director at Merck. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks.
Now, Tom, tell us a little bit about the Merck Forest and Farmland Center.
George Merck founded the nonprofit corporation almost 65 years ago. He was interested in conservation, and actually the original charge for Merck was very similar to the work that's now done by the Extension Service. So developing models for managing forest and farmland using best practices, if you will, not a phrase that was used 65 years ago, but I think it'd be helpful to use it today. That's what George had in mind, and we've become an educational nonprofit that specializes in trying to provide people who are interested in various aspects of farm and forest land management the opportunity to learn about it, and children as well, through hands-on learning and place-based education models.
And what are the reasons behind raising sheep at the center?
Well, there's a history of it, which plays into our approach to education. Merck's history, going back to the 1800s, as we developed the land, was similar to Vermont's. Merck's land there's about 3,200 acres now, and about 90% of it was open. The reverse is true now. So we have about 60 acres of open land now out of the total. But there used to be, in the mid-1800s, as many as almost 800 sheep on the various farms. There were 5 or 6 farms, as best we can determine it, in the mid-1800s. Now there's one, and we've got about 60 animals on the farm now.
And so what about your involvement with the sheep shearing school?
Well, it just seemed like a logical fit. We annually host a sheepdog trial in the summer. We've worked with sheep on the farm over the extended period of time that the nonprofit has been in existence. But it's also something that can be done on a small scale. I mean, you can buy a lamb that's been rejected by you at a relatively reasonable price and have them mow your lawn. But once you get into the business of keeping the lamb and raising other lambs or producing wool, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to harvest it becomes an issue, hence Jim's involvement.
And so let's bring Rachel in from Shelburne Farms. Tell us a little bit about what you do as a farm-based educator.
So my job as a farm-based educator is basically to teach people about food and fiber and where they come from. I have a hand in the farm side. I get to be a farmer as well as an educator. I appropriately for today have helped with the sheep flock in our most intense weeks of lambing, when we had about 140 lambs born in about 6 weeks. So I have a part in the farming side, and then also about teaching about what we do in farming.
And how do the sheep fit into the big picture at Shelburne Farms?
So sheep have a dual purpose at Shelburne Farms. One is obviously the production side. So we're raising pasture-based lamb for the farm-to-table restaurant at the inn, and we're sending all the fiber to the Welcome Center. It's spun into yarn and sold at our farm store there. Occasionally we have leftover lamb that we sell up there, as well as the sheepskins are sold there. So that's the productive side of the sheep at Shelburne Farms. And any profit that we accrue there goes back to the nonprofit education, to support the nonprofit education center. And then the other side is actually supporting our education programs, so using the sheep to teach about what it's like to be a sheep farmer. We have a field trip right now for elementary school students to come and spend the day learning about what it would be like to be a sheep farmer, and how we start with a sheep and end with a sweater. Or we have family programs, adult programs, so using our sheep as a resource for education as well.
And obviously sheep need to be sheared. That's all part of it.
Yes, yes.
And you've done that.
I did it last year at the shearing school. It was my first time, yes.
So in addition to the upcoming shearing school, what are some of the other educational programs that are coming up at Shelburne Farms?
This coming Saturday, we have the Leaping Lambs family program, where we're celebrating sheep. So from 10 to 1, anyone can come on down. It's just a small fee, but no registration required. So we're going to have some fun hands-on activities for everybody. You can meet some of our sheep and lambs and spin wool into yarn and meet our sheep. It is a busy weekend at the farm. We have the Green Mountain Draft Horse Association is hosting their annual driving clinic. So while people are learning about sheep on one side of the farm, others will be learning about how to drive draft horses on the other side of the farm. And in conjunction with that, there's a really neat talk on Saturday night from 6:30 to 8 about the new horse-powered farm using horses in small sustainable agriculture.
And so, Tom, we've got about a minute left. What's on the horizon at the Merck Center?
Well, we'll be planting about 400 chestnuts, hopefully to produce some resistant cultivars in terms of chestnut blight. We've got the sheepdog trials coming up in July. And we have a UVM grad student who's going to be doing some work over the course of the summer. She's working on a master's in their field naturalist program, and she'll be looking at Merck with an eye towards assessing which plant communities we have there, where they are, how extensive they are. All of that is part of looking into whether we'll add conservation easements to the entirety of the the land that we hold.
Well, fantastic. I want to thank you both for joining us today. And just a reminder, the sheep shearing schools at Shelburne Farm and Merck Forest and Farmland Center. Schools are on April 26th and the 27th, and for more information, you can call the number on your screen. That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.